The letter arrived on a quiet morning, and it changed everything. What looked like a blessing quickly turned into a nightmare no one warned him about. When Daniel inherited his grandfather's ranch, it felt unreal. 1,200 acres of open land, rolling hills, and memories tied to generations before him. He hadn't planned to move there immediately, but he wanted to protect it. The land meant history, peace, and responsibility. For weeks, everything stayed calm. Neighbors waved. The wind moved through tall grass. Then one envelope shattered the silence. The letter came from an HOA Daniel didn't even know existed. It claimed jurisdiction over parts of the ranch and demanded immediate compliance. The message was cold, official, and threatening. According to them, Daniel owed fees, penalties, and retroactive development violations. At the bottom was a number that made his chest tighten. $120,000. Confused and stunned, Daniel reread the letter again and again. The ranch had existed long before the HOA was formed. His grandfather had never paid them a single dollar. Yet the HOA insisted the land now fell under their authority. They warned that failure to pay would result in legal action, liens, and restricted access. Daniel stood on the porch that evening, staring across the land his family protected for decades. The sun dipped low, and with it came a realization. This wasn't just about money. Someone wanted control. And they believed he wouldn't fight back, but Daniel wasn't planning to walk away, he just didn't know how far they were willing to go next. The calls started before Daniel even had time to respond, and each one carried a sharper edge than the last. The HOA board left messages filled with forced politeness and hidden threats. They spoke about community harmony while reminding him that unpaid fees could destroy his credit and freeze his property rights. Daniel tried explaining the ranch's history, but they cut him off every time. To them, paperwork mattered more than truth. Soon, inspectors arrived without warning. They walked the land with clipboards, taking photos and marking imaginary boundaries. One claimed the fencing violated HOA guidelines. Another questioned the dirt road his grandfather built decades earlier. Every visit ended with another notice and another fine. Neighbors began whispering. Some avoided eye contact. Others warned him quietly that the HOA had powerful lawyers and endless patience. Daniel felt pressure closing in from every direction. The ranch that once felt peaceful now carried tension in the air. When Daniel requested official documents proving the HOA's authority, the board delayed. Weeks passed with no response, but the bills kept coming. Late fees stacked up. Legal language filled each letter, designed to scare him into paying without question. One night, Daniel spread old maps across his kitchen table. Deeds, surveys, and handwritten notes from his grandfather told a different story. The boundaries didn't match the HOA's claims at all. The ranch predated the neighborhood by decades. That's when Daniel realized something important. The HOA wasn't confused, they were counting on him being intimidated, and if he gave in now, the land would never truly be his, so he made a decision that changed the entire fight. Daniel didn't respond with anger, he responded with evidence. Instead of paying the bill, he hired a property attorney who specialized in land disputes. Together, they requested certified records from the county. The results confirmed what Daniel already suspected. The HOA had no legal authority over the ranch. Their jurisdiction stopped miles away from his boundary lines. When Daniel sent the findings to the HOA, their tone shifted. The friendly language disappeared. The next letter accused him of interference, obstruction, and intentional non-compliance. They threatened court and claimed damages were increasing daily. Then came the real escalation. The HOA placed a notice of intent to lien the ranch. They told Daniel that until the balance was paid, access roads could be restricted. That crossed a line. Blocking land access wasn't just aggressive. It was unlawful. Daniel's attorney filed an immediate challenge. They demanded a court review and requested an injunction to stop the HOA from acting further. For the first time, the HOA was forced to answer under oath. At the hearing, their representatives struggled. Maps didn't align. Dates didn't match. Their arguments relied on assumptions instead of facts. Meanwhile, Daniel's attorney presented records going back 50 years. Each document chipped away at the HOA's claims. The judge ordered a full review and temporarily blocked the HOA from issuing fines or taking action. It wasn't a final victory, but it changed the balance of power. As Daniel left the courthouse, the HOA board members avoided his eyes. They weren't confident anymore, and Daniel knew this fight was far from over. The HOA didn't retreat quietly, they made a mistake that sealed their fate. Instead of waiting for the court's final ruling, the HOA attempted to enforce temporary access controls. Heavy equipment appeared near a shared boundary road. Signs were installed claiming HOA management of the route. Daniel recorded everything. Dates, times, license plates. When his attorney saw the footage, the response was immediate. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was documented overreach. A formal complaint was filed with the county, alleging illegal interference with private land access. County officials arrived within days. They reviewed the HOA's actions and demanded permits that didn't exist. The HOA representatives stumbled through explanations, shifting blame and contradicting themselves. The officials issued warnings and ordered all equipment removed immediately. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Homeowners started asking questions. If the HOA could bully Daniel, who would be next? Support quietly shifted. The board's confidence cracked. The court date arrived faster than expected. Evidence piled up. The HOA's legal fees ballooned. Daniel stayed calm, focused, and patient. He didn't need revenge. He needed truth on record. When closing arguments ended, the courtroom went silent. The judge reviewed the documents one last time, then spoke clearly. The HOA had no claim, no authority, no right to bill, fine, or restrict Daniel's land. The $120,000 demand was dismissed entirely, but the consequences for the HOA were only beginning. The ruling hit the HOA harder than anyone expected, and panic followed fast. The judge didn't just dismiss the bill. He ordered the HOA to cover Daniel's legal costs. He also warned the board that further interference could result in penalties. The message was clear. Their power stopped where private property began. Back in the neighborhood, meetings grew tense. Homeowners demanded explanations. Why were funds wasted on a lawsuit they couldn't win? Why did the board push authority they never had? Members resigned. Trust collapsed. Daniel returned to the ranch with a quiet sense of relief. The land felt different again. Open. Free. Protected. The wind carried no tension now. Just space and silence. The HOA tried to save face with formal letters and vague apologies, but the damage was done. Their authority weakened, and residents paid closer attention to every decision afterward. Daniel never celebrated publicly. He didn't need to. The victory wasn't loud. It was lasting. His grandfather's land remained untouched by fear or control. One neighbor stopped by weeks later and thanked him. Not for the lawsuit, but for standing firm. For proving that intimidation only works when people stay silent. Daniel looked across the ranch once more, knowing the fight had changed more than just one property. It changed how power was challenged, and it reminded everyone that ownership still meant something. Time passed, but the story didn't fade. It traveled further than Daniel ever expected. Online forums picked it up. Locals shared the case quietly. Other landowners reached out, asking how he stood his ground without losing everything. Daniel answered when he could, always with the same message. Know your rights. Document everything. Don't panic. The HOA reorganized under new leadership, but their reach remained smaller. Rules were rewritten. Authority was questioned instead of assumed. The neighborhood felt different, more cautious, more balanced. Daniel invested in the ranch again. Repairs were made. Trails cleared. The land felt alive instead of threatened. Each improvement felt like honoring the past while securing the future. Sometimes, he reread the original bill. The number that once felt overwhelming now seemed almost laughable. Not because the threat wasn't real, but because fear had lost its grip. Standing up hadn't been easy. It had been exhausting, slow, and emotionally draining. But it worked. And that truth mattered more than any settlement. Daniel didn't defeat the HOA with force or anger, he defeated them with patience, proof, and resolve, and that made all the difference. The final twist wasn't the court ruling, it was what came after. Months later, Daniel received a letter from the county. The HOA was under review for multiple boundary complaints, not just his. Other landowners had come forward, inspired by his case. Investigations were opened. Policies were frozen. Daniel realized then that the $120,000 bill had never been about money. It was a test. And the HOA had failed it. The ranch remained untouched. Quiet. Free. Just as his grandfather intended. Daniel walked the land one evening as the sun dipped low, knowing the fight was truly over. Not because someone surrendered, but because the truth finally stood unchallenged, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.